Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting Tuesday night Eventide patrons only stream. How is everyone doing here this fine Tuesday afternoon? I'm glad to be back after, well, frankly, my little spill and accident a little over a week ago. Last week was a pretty rough one, dealing with some hurt hands, but they're mostly better now. As you can see, you can kind of make out where the damage was, but it's mostly better now. It's not gross anymore, which is why I'm not wearing a bandage. It's mostly just kind of cracked and scaly. But things are coming together nicely to the point where I can use them just fine. To be totally honest, for about a week, I really couldn't do much with them. I mean, I could type and stuff, but I didn't want to push it, and I didn't want to... I wanted to give them time to heal. That way they would heal up nicely, and that's exactly what happened. Over the past week, they've kind of closed up. The skin's a little pink and stretchy, but it's going to be fine. So good. That means I can kind of get back to work, and that is exactly what I've been doing. The past few weeks have seen a flurry of activity, both on Eventide and Hopefinder. Obviously, the Hopefinder thing wrapped up, but whenever I wasn't working on Hopefinder stuff to make sure the campaign came in for a landing, I was working on Eventide stuff to keep some things moving along. Now, one thing that we've talked about quite a bit was getting Wolfram's Fate Part 1 kind of through the process. Then we had a roadmap to see how the rest of this was going to work. And, you know, there have been ups and downs and delays and things like that. I've learned a lot, and as a business, frankly, you know, the only things I have self-published before this were mostly just PDF stuff. So there was a whole bunch of steps that I never did, and, you know, I was not working with artists and editors in the past. So the thing that, like, I do this as my day job, right? And, you know, I spend all day working on RPG products. But frankly, most of my work is spent in Word. I don't do layout. I don't have to worry about color correction. I don't have to worry about meeting printer specs and setting up bleeds and margins and all that kind of sort of stuff. I don't have to deal with image management, file management, all that sort of shit. I don't have to do any of that in my day job. So one of the things that has been very enlightening with Eventide, with Minishar Games, has been kind of learning the process and figuring out how to make these things. I've always had a basic understanding, but I've never had hands-on experience. And now I do, right? I mean, I'm doing all my own contracting. I'm not creating my own art, but I do create my own maps. You know, certainly working with professional editors and artists ups the level of my game and ups the level of my product as well. But the one thing that I really wanted to master, that I wanted to become good at, was doing my own layout. Because I do pride myself in learning how to pick up programs and figure out how to kind of get the most out of them, to figure out how to use them, right? I'm one of the things I pride myself at is being able to pick up a brand new program and learn and figure it out and kind of use it effectively. So the layout for these has been a bit of a challenge, and you've all seen it, right? You have the PDFs, the finished PDFs of Part 1 of Wolfram's Fate. However, I do want to note there's going to be an update to that soon, because I have noticed a few mistakes. And some things that I think just might make the document a little better. Now, how do I know all this? Well, part of the process of setting up the PDF was I had to create two versions of it. The first version was the PDF version, right? That doesn't have a bleed. Everything can be what it is. I don't have to worry much about ink coverages or, you know, correcting for color profile. I mostly just get to use the kind of web standard RGB stuff, and it doesn't matter. But I also set it up for print because I wanted to make sure that folks who wanted it could get it through drive-through POD, print on demand. It also gives me the option of doing a mass print run and selling them at a show, like having them at a booth or something, right? You know, if that's something that ever happens again, hypothetically. But to do that, I had to lay it out different, right? I had to create a separate layout, same basic file, same basic information, but it kind of forks in the middle, and I do a different version. Now, in reality, I could use the same version for both. I would just need to set it up that way. But this time I at least kind of found it easier to kind of create one version and then use that version to create a separate version. That way I had both in their final states. So I created the print version, and that required me to, we talked about this. I had to convert all the images to CMYK, and then I had to check for ink coverage. Now, this is a weird concept that most folks don't get, but basically C, M, Y, and K are the 4 ink colors, and each nozzle can be used on an individual point up to 100%, which means one spot on the piece of paper could get 400% ink coverage. Most printers will tell you don't do that because it's putting so much liquid into the paper that the paper will warp and distort. So they generally give you guidelines of don't break this because this is the tolerance for the paper starts to get weird. Different printers have different volumes. The printer I'm using for my Hope Finder zines can go up to 300%. They said don't go over 300. That starts getting weird. But Lightning Source, which is the printer for drive-through, has a ink coverage max of 240. So I had to go in and adjust all the images to get them down to 2. And they had a kind of a conversion matrix thing that made it pretty simple, and I didn't lose any image quality. The colors didn't shift, not noticeably. Like if you held them both up, you could tell there was a slight difference between the two, because the colors would be downshifted a little and compensated for their brightness with a bit more darkness. So that is kind of a trick in that your eye can't tell the difference between vibrancy and darkness. That black can kind of make up for some of the color in a way that allows you to reduce all the ink saturation values. So oftentimes when you see something that's the color version, on your screen versus the print version, there will be a color shift because the printer can only make certain things. Why am I talking to you about it? Well, part of the process was to, once it's all set up, it needs to go through pre-flight at drive-through, and then drive-through sends it to Lightning Source. Lightning Source then sends it through its process, and that takes several days. Not because it takes very long, but it's just there's a queue, and you have to sit through the queue. And then, once it's all said and done, before you can put it on sale, you have to do a printer proof. So that's what I did. I did a printer proof. And I basically ordered a copy and said, ship it to me. It's right here. This is the show and tell, everybody. This is the first print copy of any Eventide product that's ever been made. The green screen's kind of screwing it up. I'm going to turn the green screen off just temporarily here. Let me go in here and go in here. Let me turn this off for just a second. You're going to see my green screen. But you're going to get a full view of it. There it is. Wolfram's Fate, Part 1. The tower opens. That's right. All right. So, I'm super excited. As you can see. I'm going to go ahead and turn this back on. Okay. So, this is Part 1 of Wolfram's Fate. Now, you all have the PDFs, so it's not like anything in here is a surprise. But I do want to say it looks great. I mean, it really does look fantastic. Get to a page that's got some color images and some vibrant pictures here. You'll have to excuse me, the green screen's kind of screwing it up, but it does look fantastic. It really does look good. I think, our good cranky Major Domo, the whole thing turned out fantastic. I could not be happier. The handouts look great. They look really good in here. Here on the next spread. Handouts look fantastic. Really happy with how those came together. There's some weirdness, right? Because I'm printing through Lightning Source. So I don't have any end papers, right? The inside and back, inside front and back covers are blank. Also, when you print Lightning Source, you have to leave the last page blank, which kind of sucks. But that's the price you pay for doing POD. Back cover looks fantastic. Really happy with how that turned out. So yeah, here it is. I'm super excited. It's actually a print product. Nice little 32-pager. It's not very thick, right? I mean, it's 32 pages, right? So it's got a very thin little spine. The blue maps do look great in print. That is true. These turned out very nicely. Very happy with how these turned out. Nice, legible. Yeah. No, they turned out really good. This is the first time I've actually looked at them in detail, but they're a little fuzzy because some of the light lines are very thin. But it is glue bound. It is what is technically called perfect bound. Perfect binding means that each page is printed individually. So in staple bound, they print, instead of printing 8.5 by 11s, they print 11 by 17s. So the first page you see, this page right here, would be attached to the last page, right? Because it would wrap all the way through the product and come out the back. So that's why in staple bound, all of those books have their page numbers always in increments of 4. Right, so it's 4, 8, 16, 32, 20, 24, 20. It's always going to be in increments of 4 because you're doing 11 by 17. But with perfect bound, you can do any number of even number of pages, and they print each one, and then they all just get glue bound into the spine. Now, this has its ups and downs. The upside is it's a little bit more even on the printing. I think one of the things that folks are going to notice with the Hope Finder books is that the bigger ones have kind of weird, not bowing, but there's kind of a weird edge treatment because the pages are kind of nested inside of each other. So as a result, they get kind of weird. There's a little bit of trimming that happens to make that kind of more even, but it is still noticeable. But with perfect bound, right? I mean, it's perfect bound. It is exactly the size they set it to. Everything about it is kind of exactly what you want. Now, the thing that I'm really impressed with, I gotta be honest, the thing that I'm really impressed with this print is just how clean it is. This print is right on spec. Like, the margins came out perfect, the cut came perfect. Everything about the physicality of this came out kind of just right. So, this is great. However, I made a mistake. I did something in one point in time during my layout that I didn't think was going to be a big deal, but once I got the print version, I realized there was a problem. So, Lightning Source didn't do anything wrong with this, but I have started the process of getting another reprint, getting another proof print. So I cannot put this on sale just yet. I'll explain what's wrong here in just a minute. But yeah, so what's happened is I've had to start the process over again. Once I got it, within the same day, I realized what the problem was, went inside the files, corrected it, re-exported them, re-uploaded it, and it's going back through the approval process again. So just as of today, it's already back in Lightning Source, and they are already reproofing it, or rechecking it. And I expect within 2 or 3 days, I will order another proof copy, which will take about another week or so, week and a half to get to me. So we got about another 2 weeks before I can put these on sale. That sucks. I'm not thrilled with it, but I'd rather have it be perfect, take an extra 2 weeks, than not, right? So, I'll explain exactly what the problem is. So, if you'll notice, here on the very first page, I want you to pay attention to the edge treatment. So, the edge treatment here, this is page texturing to make it kind of look interesting. And on page 1 here, it's dark here and fades down to kind of a yellowish parchment color. That is throughout the book. However, if you look at all the pages after it, they're much lighter. Now, what's actually happening is that they're not actually much lighter. It's that the darkest part is in the middle. So, the way the page layout works is the darker color goes further down on one side than it does the other. At some point in time in my layout, the pages got swapped. The darker color was always supposed to be on the outside edges, and the lighter color was supposed to be in the middle. But if you look here in this book, right? You look over here, the lighter color is here, and the significant, well, there's a bad spread because there's a map. Okay. Lighter color's here. The darker color's in the spine. That's a problem. And I'm going to show you exactly why it's a problem. Let me find a page. This is a perfect page. I'm going to hold this up pretty close. It's pretty blurry. But the problem is that darker color is hitting the text because the spine is closer, making it illegible. But if you look at it at the edge, it's fine. There's a couple reasons for this. One, the margin, the way that the bleed works is that the bleed, which is the area that gets cut, but you still want your image to extend into it just in case the blade is off by a little. The bleed is only on the outside. It's not on the inside. So I didn't move the text away from the spine, Tiger, because it's actually not that close. If you look down toward the bottom of the page, it's fine, right? You can read that. Is it a little close to the spine? Sure. But that's just the nature of being perfect bound. It's the dark coloring that's a problem, because the dark coloring is extending into the text. But if you swap that, the light coloring, the color fades so much faster that it's not a problem. Because if you look here, right, the dark color is gone after about an inch. Whereas back here it goes down half the page. So when I looked at it, I was like, wow, this looks great. And then I was trying to read a page and I was like, are my eyes getting old? No, that color bleed is just a problem. And that's because when I set up the page, I assumed the dark color was going to be out on the edge, like it is on the first page. Not like it is on the later pages. So I don't know when that swap happened. You can see the swap didn't happen on the front page. And that's not surprising to me because on the front page, the template is different. So whatever automated thing happened with the rest of the pages didn't happen on page 1. So as a result, that dark crease goes down pretty far in the rest of the book. So after realizing that, I decided it was a difficult choice, to be honest, because I was like, well, it's still legible, but there's part of me that's like, well, it's not perfect. And it's never going to be 100% perfect, but this is an obvious flaw that frankly makes the book a little harder to use. And I don't want it to be a little hard. Right? I want this book to be something that folks can easily kind of open and get use out of. And you can see here, right? The text, because it's on the tan background on the introducing Wormbone, is fine. It's not about being near the spine. It's about the dark color. So that's why I did a proof. That's why they make you do a proof, so that you can check it and make sure that everything is correct. Now, I'll say this. The one thing that I'm super happy about is there aren't any other flaws. There aren't any other problem. Right? That was the only thing I caught. Was that one issue. There's nothing about the layout that's wrong. I really like how the spine wrap worked. The kind of beaded, braided metal spine looks great. It did exactly what I wanted it to. Cover colors are crisp. The logo looks good. The back cover looks great. Really happy with how that kind of came together. Everything about this is what I wanted, except that one thing. I also forgot to put a special thing, so I added that. So this is an artifact. This is my very first print of Eventide. Something I'm going to keep and cherish. But this is flawed and wrong. I'm really happy with how the book came out. It's not a huge book. It's not gigantic. It's not everything. But it's a first step. And the upside is that's a mistake I won't make again. So... Tiger, that is exactly correct. I'm not going to make 999 wrong ways to make an Eventide book, but I'll take one. If I have to make one wrong way, that's okay. And, you know, pretty happy with it. I think all in all, flipping through it, it feels like a nice solid adventure. It's, you know, 31 pages in this, because the last page is blank. You know, and frankly, everything's in there. It looks pretty great. You all have had it now for a little while. I hope you've gotten a chance to read it. And check it out. So I will say this. The PDFs that you have, I'm going to update those. I'm going to update the digital PDFs to swap the color there as well. Because although I don't think it's as big of a problem in the PDF, it is still a problem. Right? It is still something that's noticeable. So if it's noticeable and it's a problem, I'm going to go ahead and fix it. So there is that. Expect me to update that probably sometime in the next week or two. I'll send out a thing that just is like, hey, you know, here's the updated version. I will ask folks this. If you notice any other problems or issues with it, please let me know either through the Discord or through the Patreon. Discord's probably easiest if you just go into the Eventide chat and leave me any comment there if you notice a typo or anything like that. I haven't heard anything yet. Tessa does good work. But, you know, mistakes still happen. Mistakes creep in. So hopefully everything's good. Obviously, if there's another problem with the print edition, the only reason I'm going to accept it is if it's a deal breaker. If there's a typo, the print edition can live with a typo for a while. Because I don't want to necessarily have it not be read. So that brings me to another thing that's going to happen. I am, you know, PaizoCon Online is coming up here at the end of May, right? Memorial Day weekend will be PaizoCon Online. That's already been announced. What hasn't been announced is what events are happening and stuff like that. I'm not going to talk about those, but would not surprise me if I try and run some Eventide during the show. So for folks who are interested in getting a chance to play with me, you might be able to get that chance as part of PaizoCon Online. Tiger, of course you can. Yeah, no, see, here's the thing. I think the thing that's important to understand about this project is once it's in your hands, you're free to show it off and talk about it. That's perfectly fine. You're not underneath any NDA for me. You are not underneath any restriction from me. The only restriction that does exist is a restriction that exists on all IP and property, which is if you do run it and are streaming it or recording it or something, you cannot then sell that production, right? You can't put it behind a paywall. But you know, if you're just running it in a game store, I don't care. I'd love to hear about it, in fact. So Tiger, if you do decide to run it, let me know. I'd love to hear about it. But yeah, no, there's no restriction there at all. Yeah, the only restriction is taking my stuff and doing a private podcast that you charge people for it, Patreon or something like that, right? That would be a So yeah, that's kind of the big exciting news this week. I'll tell you a little bit. I'll give you a bit of an update on the two playtest groups. They've both met now. Both groups still met last week. So I had my hand problem, but I still ran twice. I had to run twice because my Thursday group missed their previous Thursday, so they did a makeup this past Thursday, and then they're going to play again this coming Thursday. So both groups have now are now this close to being done with part 2 of Wolfran's Fate. Both groups are wrapping up the Eventide celebration of games. The last day is filled with games and prizes and stuff, and they are both in the middle of doing that. Both groups have gone through the pie eating contest. which turns out has been one of the most riveting and spellbinding parts in both of my games. Both groups got really into the challenge of the pie eating contest, the escalating fortitude saves, the random chance to play catch up by eating mystery pies, the point scheming of like, well, I can get fewer points, but my DC will go up slower, but you win by total points even if you go out, so who knows? It's been a lot of fun. And the way, just to give you all an update, the way that the pie eating contest works is as follows. There are 3 types of pie. Each round you have to choose between 1 and 3 pies. It's not about eating it fast, it's about endurance. So you have to choose one of 3 pies. You can choose a frostberry pie, which increases your DC going forward by 2 and is worth 1 point. You can take a fire jam pie, which increases your DC by 3, but is worth 2 points. Or you can take a mystery pie, and if you take a mystery pie, you have to roll a d10, and there's like 5 different pies you can get. One of which is like a doomsday pie. It increases your DC by 5, but is worth 4 points. Problem is, you might go out very fast if that happens. So you take the good, you take the bad. I might actually change that in the final iteration to 3 points. Then there is like a fire jam pie that's only worth 1. There's a frostberry pie that's worth 2 instead of 1, right? So the frost, those 2 swap points. Then there's a soothing pie that only increases your DC by 1 and is worth 2 points. And then there's a prize pie that gets you a free alchemical item as like a door prize. So I've run both groups through this now, and both groups sent in multiple people and had some big ridiculous pie eating contests. Most of they both went like 7 or 8 rounds. Hadram is one of the competitors. He's the museum keeper, the nerdy museum keeper who wants to be Wolfran's apprentice. And he's been a serious competitor both times, even though his fort save is only a +6. Like, there was weird... I put in one Gloamling kind of ringer character who's supposed to be really good, and in both contests she bounced a 1 and crit failed on the first pie and hence dropped out. So, weird bits of drama. It's been fun. Been a lot of fun. Both groups had a really good time with it, and had a surprising amount of challenge in it, right? Like, it was a thing. And there's a side bit going on where Havanok is there cheering on the Gloamling and willing to bet the PCs, that any PCs that aren't playing, that the Gloamling will win. So the PCs who aren't playing get to role play with Havanok. The PCs who are playing have to make decisions about what pie to eat, and what points they want to try and rack up, because in the end, every time you fail a save, you get a stacking condition that gives you a -1 penalty on your save, but you still continue. You don't go out until you crit fail. When you crit fail, you're done, and you can also stop at any point in time. So there's a few tweaks I might make. I might make a tweak that says if you crit fail, you're out and you lose some points. So there may be, I might create a tactical thing where there's a point where you decide, you know what? I'm just going to stop here and sit on my points and hope that the people ahead of me crit fail to the point where they fall behind me, right? That might be interesting. I might have to do some math on it. But yeah, as a construct, it worked very well and was surprisingly dramatic. I think, you know, I kind of rotated who chose what pie to eat each round, so it wasn't the same person going first and the same person going last each time. It changed up. And yeah, so there was a lot of people eating pie and a lot of people throwing up pie. That's what happened in both games. It was a lot of fun. And then from there, both groups made it to the relay race. So the relay race is what happens at the end, and the relay race now consists of 4 legs. Each leg is a different kind of challenge. It's meant to go quickly, whereas, frankly, the pie eating contest took like an hour and a half with each group. From explaining it and then doing the rounds and doing the rolls, yeah, the pie eating contest took a while. You know, because I had several people all rolling fort saves and making decisions, and that just takes a while. So the relay race. Relay race has 4 steps. The players have to decide who is going to each step before they know what the step is. This is me just being evil. Because it means people might be mismatched at a step that they're not actually good at, which is fine. It's fun that way. So the first step is a race, and then you arrive at a log that you have to do 100 points of damage to. You basically just have to cut through a log. No attack rolls, just damage rolls. How quickly can you deal 100 points of damage to a wooden log? It's a log cutting contest, right? That's the first leg. Pretty straightforward, to be honest. Goes pretty quick. The entire relay race is being measured in rounds. So, you know, the first sprint is 300 feet from the start line to the log. So from the start line to the log, you basically just are like, how many actions does it take for your character to go 300 feet? And then once you're there, how quickly can you deal damage to this log, right? That's it. That's the entire contest. That's the first one. So that's the first one. The second relay is the character has to then run out of the keep and down some stairs, and they get to make some choices about running down some stairs, and then they arrive at a door. There's a door for each team, and they have to go through the door, and once they're on the other side, there's another door in front of them, and from this door they hear a riddle. So, you want to hear the riddle? I'll tell you the riddle. There's 3 riddles, but I'll read it to you. Let me go ahead and pull it up here. Everybody likes a good riddle, right? Let's see if anybody here can get it. Are you ready? Once I flew lighter than a feather, but now I am heavier than stone. No axe can break me, but time will take me. I block many paths, but now one is open. What am I? I wrote riddles. So, that is the first riddle. The second riddle. For every ring I bear, my worth only grows tenfold. Many try to find me, but those who do hide me away. For my value is known at a glance, but my true worth hides within. What am I? The final riddle. Even though my name is a remembrance of cold, old pain, I have only ever provided for you. I have taught you many lessons, but we have never spoke. I have given you food, water, and shelter from the day you were born, and never asked for anything in return. Until the end, when you will give everything back to me. What am I? So, the way this works is that they have to answer 3 riddles. And each time they hear the riddle, they get to hear the riddle. That takes a round. They can ask for the riddle to be restated. That takes a round. They can ask for a hint. That takes a round. They can make a knowledge check or make some sort of skill check to try and get a clue. That takes a round. So basically they just get stuck in this riddle thing and have to get through it as quickly as possible. Alara, you are correct. It is a gemwood tree. The second one is a gemwood tree. Absolutely. Yeah. So I'll give you all a hint. All of these are setting based. They're not like generic riddles. Like, oh, the answer is time. No, they're all setting based specifically. So each one of them is tied to the setting itself. Why? Because if you're going to put in riddles, you might as well make them relevatory to the setting to be like, all right, who's been paying attention to the goddamn campaign we're playing? So that first one, I'll give you the first one again. Let's see if we can get some folks to figure it out. I'll read the first one again. Once I flew lighter than a feather, but now I am heavier than... No axe can break me, but time will take me. I block many paths, but now one is open. What am I? Alara, you are correct. That is exactly. It is the Wormbone Dragon. Yeah. It is the dragon draped on Wolfrin's tower. Both groups, when they got that, just slapped their foreheads like, God, we're the ones exploring that. That's the entire point of this goddamn adventure. But both of them spent a lot of time honestly thinking, is it, they're like, what was lighter than a feather but is now heavier than stone? What gauge weight as it ages? And I'm like, it's the skeleton. Skeleton petrified. It once flew, and now it's rock. I'll give you the last one, too, here. Even though my name is a remembrance of cold pain, I think I need to work on the poetry of this one. I have only ever provided for you. I have taught you many lessons, but we have never spoke. I have given you food, water, and shelter from the day you were born and never asked for anything in return, until the end, when you will give everything back to me. What am I? So, this last one is the Ice Scar Valley. Is the valley where the entire thing takes place. This is actually a little bit of a harder thing for the groups to get, because they may not know the name of the valley, right? They may not have picked up on it yet. But it's in all the setting material and stuff, so, and they can always make checks and stuff like that. Each one of these includes hints and things that they can learn by making a check and stuff like that. So, there you go. That's it. So, yeah. There you go, Andrew. So that's part 2 of the race. Yeah, you were close, right? Part 3 of the race is swimming down the Frost Run River, which is deadly and challenge because the water is very cold and it increases the swim DC very quickly. But there are rafts with like warming barrels in the water that are like anchored, so you can climb up and warm up before you keep swimming. And then part 4 is called the Back Alley Race, which basically is go 50 feet and then face an obstacle. If you fail the obstacle, you have to run around it, which increases your distance 100 feet. Then you go another 50 feet, then there's an obstacle. If you can't clear it, you have to go 100 feet around it, and then there's another 50 feet. And it does that 3 times before the final sprint to the finish line. So that is kind of the whole race. The winner's purse is 100 gold pieces. That can be a lot of money for the PCs at their level. But by the time they get to this, they should be 3rd level. So 100 gold is good, but it's not game breaking. Enough that both groups were like, we don't know if we're going to do the relay race. Are we any good at that? And then they're like, how much is the prize? Okay, we're in. So, yeah, that's been fun. But when both groups are done with that, that's it, right? We're basically done with part 2 of Wolfrin's Fate. As a matter of fact, the group I'm running on Thursday has already, or part 2 of Wolfrin's Fate, the group I'm running on Thursday has already found out that they need to go to Red Thistle. Like, they found the Gloamling, so they're ready to start part 3, possibly as soon as Thursday. I don't think we'll actually get into part 3 on Thursday. I think what'll happen is they'll finish up the race, they'll talk to some folks, they'll start buying gear, they might do some leveling up and stuff like that, and then finish up part 2 this Thursday. And then Monday's group had a new character get introduced last week, and that was a lot of fun, and I still haven't cleared that I can tell you all who that is. I want to make sure before I do so. But that slowed things down a little bit, and they still need to finish up the relay race, and then they still need to go and catch the Gloamling. So I'm going to wager that's going to be all professional. Tiger Eyes, all of the other teams, they just have set times. So the way it's set up is the other teams just have, this is how long it takes for them to do this part. And then you don't have to roll about it. The players are basically fighting against preset numbers. But they do have a chance to win, right? They just have to not really blow any part of the ring. So the new player is playing a dwarf fighter, which the other group desperately needs. They didn't have much of a main character. Dan is in that group, and he's playing a rogue. I mean, obviously, because the sky is blue and up is and up is up. But they didn't have a melee combat character. They have a cleric that's a war priest, but that's not quite the same. So having a dwarven fighter in the group is going to be a big help. The other group has the Thursday group has a dwarven barbarian. And she does just fine. Am I ready for part 3 writing-wise? No. I've got some stuff put down, but I'm not quite ready yet. There is a chance I may take a week off. Or a 2-week cycle off running, just to give me a chance to put down some solid time in writing. I've had some delays. Obviously, the hand thing has not been helping, but I also had to wrap up some Hopefinder stuff. So my time's being pulled in 4 different directions right now. That said, most of that other stuff is now cleared up. Like, Hopefinder is now, just so everyone here knows, I mentioned it to chats, the Hopefinder printer proof is now on its way. So, not drive-through, this is a different printer, so I had to learn different printer specs. And suffice to say, that ate up all of Sunday. But when I was done, I was able to actually order the printer proofs for Hopefinder as well. So for those of you who supported that product, FYI, the printer proofs for that have been ordered. I should get those next week sometime. So I should get the printer proofs for that and the new printer proofs for Eventide both next week. Early, mid, late, somewhere. I don't know, somewhere in there. Yeah, so that's pretty exciting. Yeah, no, I'm really excited. Things are moving. It's just they move at the pace that printing and shipping will. And I hate to sound impatient about this stuff. If I were printing in China doing a mass offset printing, it would take 4 months, right? This I'm like, it's going to take 2 weeks. It's okay. Goes at the pace it goes. But I do honestly think the writing for some of this stuff will actually go quite quick. It's one of those things where it's like, I haven't really gotten started writing yet, but, you know, I've got a good outline, and I've started fleshing out what some of the encounters are. Once I actually sit down to write, some of this stuff is going to fly. But that said, like, I do still have to do work on part 2, so I'm going to have to balance writing encounters and getting things set up for part 3, while also going in and finishing part 2, and finally pulling the trigger on the art order. So some of this stuff has just been a holding pattern until I kind of lock a few things into place, and finishing up the playtest is part of that. So we're almost there. I honestly think that, you know, some of this stuff is going to be done very soon. So hooray. and honestly, it's gorgeous, and I can't wait to have all 4 of these done. I think it'll be a great way to kind of start things and showcase this and let folks have print copies if they want. That'll be nice. Looking forward to it. Because I would like to release part 1 to the public right before PaizoCon. That's currently my thought. I should have part 2 well underway and in its paces by that point in time, and part 3 will be well into its playtesting. And frankly, PaizoCon is the perfect time to do it. So that lights a fire under me and gives me a deadline for some things, which is good, because I work best when I'm under a deadline, to be honest with all of you. I've learned that in myself. All right, folks, that's about all I got here tonight. I want to thank you all for hanging out and checking out my very first print edition of Eventide, the very first thing that ever got actually professionally printed. I'm super excited. I hope you are too. Thank you for joining tonight. Thank you for all of your support. All of that, all of your support really has helped make this possible. I just did my taxes to realize just how much it made everything possible. I you know, little inside baseball here. You know, last year between YouTube and Patreon and you know, some sales on various sites, you take all of that and then you balance it out against all my art costs, all my printing costs, all my expenses, my home office, that sort of stuff. And last year I made $45. That's it. That's how much I made. $45. I had to pay tax on $45. No, Alara, not yet. But that's very high on my agenda because one of my players is playing one and wants some. So it's rising up the list rather rapidly. They're coming to a point where I may take a day or two off work just to give myself more time because my weekends end up being broken for. All right, okay, yeah, big earner. Yeah, watch out. I'm rich. I'm gonna go buy a lottery ticket and a 6-pack of beer. All right. Oh, the write-offs help. Trust me. They're a big part of it. Otherwise, I got to pay taxes on it. So that sucks. All right, folks. That's all I have for tonight. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your support. It really does mean everything to me. I can't wait to get some more of this stuff out into your hands. We're rolling now. So we're going to keep on going. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you in a few minutes. But otherwise, we'll see you next time.